Ada fell to her knees, crying so hard she could barely speak. Beside her, Eric lowered his head in shame. "We are so sorry," he said. "We never knew who you really were." Blessing looked at both of them. The pain in her eyes was clear. "You came to my house to make fun of me," she said quietly. "Today, you're standing here asking me for help. How did everything end like this?" Please subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next inspiring story. Now let's go back to where it all started. A few years earlier, Ada and Blessing had been best friends since they were children. They went to the same school, played together, and shared many happy memories. But as they grew older, everything began to change. Ada was beautiful and loved being the center of attention. Blessing was kind, hardworking, and plus size. Because of her weight, many people laughed at Blessing. Some called her hurtful names. Others made jokes whenever she walked by. Even though those words hurt, Blessing never hated anyone. She simply smiled and kept moving forward. As time passed, Ada started caring too much about what people thought. She became embarrassed whenever people saw her with Blessing. Instead of standing by her best friend, she slowly began to distance herself. Years later, Ada started dating a handsome young man named Eric. One evening, while they were talking together, Ada smiled and said, "There's someone I want you to meet tomorrow." Eric smiled. "Who is she?" "My childhood friend." "Is she nice?" Ada laughed. "Oh, she's nice, but when you see her, you'll understand why I'm laughing." Eric looked confused. "What do you mean?" Ada leaned closer and whispered, "She's very fat." Eric gave a small laugh. Ada continued, "Just don't laugh in front of her." The two of them laughed together. The next morning, Ada called Blessing. "Hello, Blessing." The moment Blessing heard Ada's voice, she became excited. "Ada. It's been so long. How are you?" "I'm fine," Ada replied. "My boyfriend and I would like to visit you today." Blessing smiled happily. "Really? Please come. I'll cook something special for both of you." After the call ended, Blessing immediately went to the market. She bought fresh food, drinks, and fruits. She spent hours cooking their favorite meals. She cleaned her small house until everything looked perfect. She couldn't wait to see her old friend again. A few hours later, Ada and Eric arrived. Blessing welcomed them with a bright smile. "Ada. Eric. Welcome. Please come inside." She hugged Ada warmly and invited them to sit down. The smell of delicious food filled the house. Blessing walked into the kitchen to bring the food. The moment she disappeared, Ada looked at Eric and started laughing. "So, what do you think now?" she whispered. Eric covered his mouth, trying not to laugh. "I can't believe she's still this fat." Ada laughed even harder. "I told you." Neither of them knew. Blessing had returned quietly. She was standing behind them. And she had heard every single word. Blessing stood silently behind them. The tray in her hands began to shake. She had heard every word. For a moment, tears gathered in her eyes. But she took a deep breath, forced a smile, and walked into the living room as if nothing had happened. "Here's the food," she said softly, placing the dishes on the table. Ada and Eric immediately stopped laughing. They pretended nothing had happened. "Wow," Ada said with a fake smile. "Everything smells delicious." Blessing nodded. "I hope you both enjoy it." The three of them sat down to eat. Blessing tried to start a conversation. "So, Ada, how have you been?" Ada smiled without looking at her. "I'm fine." "And you, Eric? What do you do for work?" Eric answered politely. "I work for a construction company." "That's nice," Blessing replied with a gentle smile. For a few minutes, the room was quiet. But every time Blessing stood up to serve more food, Ada and Eric exchanged mocking looks. They tried hard not to laugh. Blessing noticed everything. She simply remained calm. After they finished eating, Ada stood up. "Thank you for the food. We should be leaving now." Blessing walked them to the door. "Thank you both for coming," she said sincerely. "It made me happy to see you again." Ada forced another smile. "We'll visit again." As soon as they entered their car and drove away, they burst into laughter. Eric shook his head. "I've never seen anyone eat that much." Ada laughed loudly. "I told you she hasn't changed." They continued laughing as the car disappeared down the road. Back inside the house, Blessing slowly closed the door. The smile on her face disappeared. She leaned against the wall and finally let the tears fall. She whispered to herself, "So, that's why they came." She wiped her tears. "I thought I was welcoming my best friend." She looked at the untouched plates on the table. Then she quietly said, "They didn't come because they missed me. They came to laugh at me." For several minutes, the house was completely silent. Then Blessing looked at herself in the mirror. Instead of crying again, she smiled through the pain. "No matter what people say about me," she whispered, "I will never stop being kind." She picked up her handbag. It was time to go to work. She had no idea that the life she was building in silence would one day make the same people who mocked her fall to their knees and beg for her forgiveness. Blessing stood quietly for a few seconds. She wiped the tears from her face and looked at herself in the mirror. "I won't let this pain change who I am," she whispered. The next morning, she woke up before sunrise. She got dressed, picked up her black handbag, and left for work. Most people in the neighborhood thought Blessing worked an ordinary office job. They had no idea she was the founder and owner of a successful company. Years of hard work, discipline, and wise decisions had changed her life. She never showed off her success. She still lived in the same modest house. She still greeted everyone with kindness. And she never judged anyone because of their appearance. Every week, Blessing quietly paid school fees for children whose parents couldn't afford them. She also helped widows start small businesses. Whenever someone needed money for hospital treatment, Blessing often paid the bills without asking for recognition. Many people knew her as a generous woman. But very few knew she was the one helping them. One morning, Blessing arrived at her company. As soon as she stepped out of her car, the security guard smiled. "Good morning, Ma." "Good morning," Blessing replied with a warm smile. Inside the building, her employees greeted her with respect. "Good morning, Ma." "Good morning, everyone," she answered. Her assistant walked over with a smile. "Ma, your meeting with the community leaders starts in 30 minutes. Blessing nodded. "Thank you. Please prepare the conference room." A few moments later, her phone rang. She answered. "Hello." "Good morning, Ma," the voice said. "This is the governor's office. We are calling to remind you about tomorrow's Community Excellence Award ceremony." Blessing smiled. "Thank you very much. I'll be there." After ending the call, she looked out through the office window. She remembered the day Ada and Eric laughed at her. For a brief moment, the pain returned. Then she smiled. "Success isn't about proving people wrong," she said quietly. "It's about becoming the best version of yourself." Meanwhile, Ada and Eric had no idea what Blessing had become. They still believed she was the same woman they had laughed at. A few weeks passed. Ada and Eric were enjoying life. They spent money freely, went out almost every weekend, and believed nothing could ever go wrong. Whenever Ada remembered Blessing, she laughed. "I still can't believe she thought we came because we missed her," she said one evening. Eric smiled. Let's just forget about her. Neither of them knew that life was about to test them. One Monday morning, Eric arrived at work as usual. But something felt different. All the employees had been called into the conference room. The company manager walked in with a serious expression. "I have some difficult news," he began. "Our company has been facing major financial problems. Today, we have to reduce the number of employees." The room fell silent. Eric held his breath. The manager continued reading names. One after another, people were asked to leave. Then Eric heard his own name. For a moment, he couldn't believe it. He slowly stood up, collected his belongings, and walked out of the office. Outside, he sat in his car with tears in his eyes. He picked up his phone and called Ada. "Hello." Ada answered cheerfully. Eric took a deep breath. I lost my job." The smile disappeared from Ada's face. "What do you mean?" "They've laid me off." For several seconds, neither of them spoke. That evening, Eric returned home. Ada hugged him tightly. "It's okay," she whispered. "You'll find another job." Eric nodded, but deep inside, he was worried. Days turned into weeks. He submitted job applications everywhere. He attended interviews. Each time, he hoped for good news. Each time, the answer was the same. "We are sorry. We've chosen another candidate." Their savings began to disappear. Soon, paying the rent became difficult. Bills started piling up on the table. The stress grew heavier every day. The laughter that once filled their home slowly faded. One evening, Ada looked at the unpaid bills and sighed. "We can't keep living like this." Eric lowered his head. "I know." Ada spoke softly. "I never imagined life could change this quickly." Neither of them realized. The woman they had mocked was quietly changing hundreds of lives every single day. Months passed. Life became harder for Ada and Eric. Their savings were gone. The rent was overdue. Some of their friends stopped answering their calls. The people who once enjoyed spending time with them slowly disappeared. One morning, Ada was scrolling through her phone, looking for job opportunities. Suddenly, she saw an announcement. Community Business Empowerment and Job Fair, free for everyone. The event promised job interviews, business support, and financial assistance for people who wanted to rebuild their lives. Ada quickly showed the post to Eric. "Look at this," she said. "Maybe this is our chance." Eric read it carefully and nodded. "We have nothing to lose. Let's go." The next morning, they dressed neatly and arrived at the event. Hundreds of people had gathered at a large community hall. Some were hoping to find jobs. Others wanted support to start small businesses. Ada looked around nervously. "I hope this changes something," she whispered. Eric squeezed her hand. "It has to." A few minutes later, the host walked onto the stage. He smiled at the crowd. "Good morning, everyone." The audience applauded. "We are honored to welcome a very special guest today. She is a successful entrepreneur. She has helped hundreds of families start new lives. She has paid school fees for children and supported many small businesses. Please stand and welcome our guest of honor." The lights turned toward the entrance. Everyone stood up and began clapping. Ada and Eric turned to look. The smile on Ada's face disappeared. Eric froze. Walking through the entrance was Blessing. She was dressed in a simple but elegant blue suit. She smiled as she greeted people along the way. Business leaders, community elders, and local officials shook her hand with respect. The audience continued clapping. Ada could barely breathe. She looked at Eric. Is that really Blessing?" Eric stared at the stage in complete disbelief. I don't believe this. The host continued speaking. Please welcome the founder of the Bright Future Foundation, the woman whose generosity has changed countless lives. Miss Blessing. The hall erupted in even louder applause. Ada's eyes filled with tears. She remembered every cruel word. Every laugh. Every moment she had humiliated her childhood friend. She whispered with a trembling voice. What have we done? Little did they know. The hardest part of their journey was only just beginning.